For data strategy leaders looking for a common sense approach to data governance that actually is going to work, today I'm going to teach you how to create a fair and transparent playing field for linking data to business value in 30 days. Now, don't take our word for it, and you probably already know this, is that companies are failing to become data driven, according to HBR, and they're even admitting it's actually hard to become data driven, which is nice to hear, in a world of it can be so easy with the click of a button, you know. But in this survey, 92, almost every participant is citing this as the main issue. Okay, so you're not alone here. This is very real. So, it goes on and on and on. I don't need to read these to you, but CRM failure rates, despite them being implemented successfully, are not driving business value. And in fact, they're hurting productivity because people are working outside these systems to get the results that they need from these systems. HBR also says that the companies identifying themselves as being data driven is actually declining year over year from 40% to 30% in just 3 years. Gartner, a leading IT research firm, only 20% of analytical insights are driving business incomes. MIT, they're saying that people are getting lost in the complexity of the software, and in doing so are forgetting about the data. Woolworths, Target, PG&E, again, failing because of regulatory issues, data management, and process documentation. Oh my gosh, I would think every organization has very strong process documentation capabilities and is very painfully aware of their regulatory issues. But data management, I would think that would be a gap. Maybe that's a privilege for some organizations. And then, HBR again saying only 3% of companies are meeting basic data quality standards. So if 30% of companies are identifying themselves as being data driven and only 3% of companies are meeting basic data quality standards, those companies identifying as being data driven, it makes you wonder what kind of data is going into their decisions. So this is a real problem, but you're already very well aware of this. So just kind of jumping into it, you can, within 30 days, put together a fair and transparent playing field for managing data in a fair and transparent way. And ultimately, what that will yield over time are improvements in profitability. So with our client, Williams Lee, they were spending so much time working with data and reporting. Even clients saw them as less than innovative. And within 30 days, we found $2.5 million of inefficiencies related to data, of which we were able to capture $500,000 of that. On a 10 to 11x multiple, that's almost $5 million in enterprise value and a little over, right? And we were able to do this in 12 months. And again, their CTO, Nick Morgan, basically said, look, in 30 days, they gave us a roadmap and a solution to be able to solve some of their most complex data issues on a global scale because we tied those recommendations directly back to business value. So if you're really saying, for data strategy leaders, look, I know you care about two things: delivering innovative data-driven solutions. You want to ensure that the information going to these stakeholders is reliable, consistent, and trustworthy. And I know that you only have a handful of opportunities to meet these goals. You're proven, okay? But at the same time, how do you become a CDO? It's really not fair for a data strategy leader, because if you want to be a CFO, you know that you need to be a controller for X years, be an FP&A for X years, to do M&A a little bit, and have a little bit of accounting background and maybe some business experience. For a CDO, you're a CTO, head of BI, a business analyst, what is the path? So in many cases, we have to define it, right? But imagine if you were at your organization and you could actually radically transform the way that people are using data in a way that they're actually deriving value from it, not muddling around in Excel and taking the data that's coming out of BI solutions and manipulating it further to deliver it to someone else who's going to manipulate it further. Imagine if someone could just get information and make a decision, or an algorithm could get that same information and make a decision. What would your company look and change feel like? You can see it, and I'm sure a lot of people get excited about that vision. And what if you were actually empowered or felt like you could make this change for once? Well, there's a well-kept secret. Look, no technology solution is successful with bad data. So if your data isn't of sufficient quality, it's not going to work. Okay. And guess what? I'm a consultant selling a software product, and I'm telling you that no one is going to tell you, and no one is going to share this with you, is that your team needs to do the data management work. Okay? No one can do it for you. A consultant can get you going, but you can't pay them X dollars to keep doing that over time. And no product's going to do it for you without you using the product. So you have to do the work. And therefore, the most valuable data resource you have in your company is your existing talent, the people who know the process and the data. They are the most valuable people in your company, and you need to engage with them. The problem is that because of the nature of most companies, not everyone's like Facebook, not everyone's like Uber, they're built around hierarchies. They're built around departments. So if you want to talk to another department, you need to go through your boss, potentially, who needs to go to their boss. And because of that, it's like a game of telephone. What you're trying to communicate gets lost in translation, and therefore the business purpose and the requirements become diluted, ownership becomes diluted, so it's extremely hard to make any progress on these data initiatives. But if you take your organization and build it around a data core, right, where you have someone sponsoring this initiative who can work across departments and empower a champion to work within those departments to capture business-driven use cases within that community and actually implement the work activities that you know already need to happen within those communities, that's where things are going to change. Now, to be successful in this situation, you need to build a community around your data core. And I know you're smart, right? You can articulate a vision for the future. You can implement complicated technologies. You can drive innovation within a company, and you can create standards and documentation that are second to none. But look, if you're doing this out of order, without the right engagement from your community, ultimately your data capabilities are going to go unadopted and you're going to be unsuccessful. So that sucks. We don't want to do that. So who am I, right? My name's Taylor Culver. I'm a former head of data strategy. I know what I'm talking about because I've been there and I felt it. And a lot of my learnings have come through working with consultants, real life experience, working with clients. And I've been doing this for 10 years. I think what makes me different is I come at things from a corporate strategy and a finance background. So I'm not a technologist, okay? I'm coming at things in terms of what is the ROI? Why should we do this? So I started this company in 2018 because I kept seeing companies struggle with this problem over and over and over again. It was just frustrating for me. So since then, we've led companies for AB InBev, the world's largest brewer of beer. You've probably heard of them. Kraft Heinz, one of the world's largest food manufacturers. Probably heard of them. Hertz, probably heard of them. Ulta Beauty, probably heard of them. Accurate Background, M&A Insurance Solutions, ThoughtSpot, a $2 billion unicorn, Keller Lankner, SJV Data Solutions, Williams Lee, and many, many more. I went to Santa Clara University in California where I got a degree in finance, and I went to the Thunderbird School of Global Management to get my MBA. Now, I started this company. I was saying this earlier that I was sick and tired of seeing data initiatives disappoint. So I started in the finance function. So I was super Excel savvy. Like I was that guy when I started my career. And then when I was told I got to participate in a finance transformation project with technology, all of a sudden I was thinking like the Matrix and Facebook and all these big tech companies. I'm like, this is going to be incredible. And then I was given the solution. And not only was it inflexible and hard to use, but the data going into it was inaccurate. And I was just shocked. So for me, it was an encumbrance to getting my job done. And I just kind of rolled up my sleeves and figured out how it worked. And I'm like, okay, these are really simple. It's not like a dark art here. It's very simple. So how do we do this? So, after hours of self-study, and I've worked with dozens of consultants, what I found is that all the pieces are there, but not in such a way that the average Joe can engage with. And what we ultimately took from it is by focusing more heavily on your community, gathering requirements, identifying business problems, you're going to change the way that your data strategy operates. The problem is today you're looking at solutions and projects like, is it on time? Who's responsible for this? That's the fastest way to disengage. So you've got this like IT mindset in conflict with the business, and the two really need to cross this bridge to be able to drive any kind of transformation. It takes a little bit of action on both sides. But here's what's going to happen. Like I was saying earlier, if the number one challenge to making a data initiative successful is going to be resistance, okay? People hate change, no secret. Cultural issues are driving resistance, and it's making it harder to be successful. But if you engage people early and just ask them, hey, what do you want? And how is it going to change your life? And how is it going to change the company? They're going to care because they feel like they're being heard. These are easy things to do that people don't do well, okay? So the solutions started working better. We had hundreds of users, tons of people wanted to use the product. People wanted to make changes, If you're deploying solutions and not thinking about your end users, you're just going to be deploying solutions that are going to go unadopted and unused. But ultimately, when people start using these things, the company is going to change. You can't measure, the fact that people aren't working overnight manipulating data in Excel. You can't measure the fact that people are spending more time with their families because of this. You can't measure these things. But at the same time, it's going to make your culture, your company, a better place to work. And you know this, but this is what we want to do. And here are some of the companies that we've worked with. Like we started not too long ago, and these are some big names, and we're very proud of these partnerships and customers, and we've done a lot of great work with them. So what I'm going to jump into now is I really just want to show you how to do it yourself, okay? My goal from this video is, if anything, understand this slide, understand the details. If you want us to fill in the details, feel free to reach out to us. We want you to be successful. I'm really, really excited to share this with you. So let me just jump into it. Is here literally a 7-step process on how to create a fair and transparent playing field for that's going to clearly link your data to business value. So first and foremost, I was harping about this earlier, but you need to engage your data community. 1. 2, you need to ensure that the data initiative has measurable financial benefit. And I'll talk about this a lot. I mean, I know these seem super intuitive, but usually in life, it's ignoring the fundamentals to why you're not successful, not because you're focused on complex solutions. So you really, really need to focus on the fundamentals here. Anyway, 3, you got to empower someone to own this initiative. Okay, someone needs to be responsible for this. This stuff just doesn't happen. And then you need to manage the initiative as a portfolio of multiple initiatives, because there is not one magic bullet that's going to fix all data issues at the company. And if you think that's the case, God help you, right? So 5, you need to build a cross-functional team, okay? And these are going to be the people responsible for delivery and execution and requirements gathering. And then you're going to align that to a solution. Most companies start at 6, okay? And that's why things fail. 1 through 5 has nothing to do with technology. 1 through 5 has everything to do with your business. So for those of you looking for an easier way to do data governance, you can't do it until you do steps 1 through 6. Data governance is maintaining this process. It's not doing documentation. It's not populating a catalog. That's just work. That doesn't do anything, okay? People won't use it. It won't change the way your company operates, okay? So you need to govern it over time by identifying further use cases, by engaging your community, and really driving home that data can actually transform your business, okay? So I'm going to jump into each one of these in a little bit of detail, and then I'm going to answer some questions that I commonly get about each one. So first and foremost, engage your data community, okay? If you're not talking to people who use the data within your company, you need to start that now. I cannot put enough emphasis on this. 80-20, okay? 80% of your day is understanding problems. 20% is talking about solutions. I would even push you to 90-10, okay? Organizations will identify a data problem and select a technology, and guess what? The technology doesn't get adopted because months are spent implementing the solution, millions of dollars are spent on consulting and software, and even internal resources are spending thousands of hours, and then the solution gets delivered and then no one wants to use it. Well, guess what? It's because you did a poor job engaging your data community. Okay, they didn't know what to do, they didn't know how to participate, so when something was delivered, You look at them as like, oh, the business isn't accountable. Well, they didn't know how to participate. And if they knew how to participate and they weren't participating, you could at least hold them accountable by engaging their sponsors and the people above them. And if they aren't helping, maybe your organization needs to rethink technology transformation. But anyway, so to make any kind of change here is that you need to build this data community around yourself, right? And anything that you are going to actively champion will have a sponsor, will have an owner with clear roles in the way that they work with your team. And you'll be able to demonstrate a clear and measurable benefit to what you're doing for the business. So, which brings me to my first point, which is the number one cause of failure in technology-related change is organizational resistance, followed very closely by poor data management. Okay, so how many people have experienced this story? Excuse me. Let's say the first day the solution's turned on, no one wants to use it. Data's wrong. The organization now is forced to redo the entire implementation in a shorter time frame with no resources. Concessions are made on features and benefits of those solutions to where you can just put out an MVP. The solution that delivered doesn't actually enable the process. It's just one more thing you have to do in your day-to-day. Executive management says, what is success? The IT team says, what is success? And then the business and the data team are sitting there like, help. Okay? This happens all the time. So have the courage to really work with your community, drive that change, get people bought in, and that's how you're going to make things happen. Okay. So, we already have data domains. Okay. This is a common question I get. Well, a data domain is simply an abstraction. Okay. Who in your company is responsible for product or customer data? Let's talk about customer data. Your sales team uses customer data. Okay, for multiple reasons. Your client services team uses customer data for multiple reasons. Your finance team looks at revenue by customer data for multiple reasons. Your marketing team looks at customer data for multiple reasons. What one person in your company can advocate for that? No one. Okay, so you need to break it into a community-based approach, because what you may find is that customer data spans every community and dozens of use cases and maybe only a handful of data elements, and that's where the collaboration needs to happen. Okay, next question. Let's say you're well on your way on a current investment, right? How can you implement these methodologies mid-project? No problem. It just asks some hard questions, right? You come in there and just say, who's responsible for these requirements? What community is this benefiting? And maybe it changes the direction of the project, but it's not going to derail it. Okay, it's going to make it tighter and a little more successful. So you need to have open ears to that. And then we do work with some data leaders who are way more comfortable with solutions and technology and coding than working with the business. And honestly, this is a segue for you, because if you have data strategy in your title, the expectation on you is to change the business, not to build reports, right? So people who build reports are not going to be compensated nearly as much as someone who's leading strategy or even a product function. So you need to either, one, take the opportunity and grow. If you're not comfortable growing in that direction, speak to your manager and say, hey, look, this is way outside my comfort zone. We need to put someone here who does this, okay? Or three, just be honest with your stakeholders, being like, hey, this is what I do, but we need someone to kind of fill this role. And inevitably, someone's going to step up. But until it's clear that expectation on that person is met with someone who feels a sense of accountability and responsibility for those tasks, it's not gonna jive. So just be honest with yourself. Talk to your manager, or take it as an opportunity to grow. Okay, 2. And I know this seems obvious, but here's what happens is that organizations go, well, if we have these insights, think of all the revenue we could generate. Or if we have these insights, think about all the risks we can mitigate. Or think about all we have to do this, okay? So people skip this step all the time because investing in data analytics is a no-brainer. So everyone's eager to sponsor them, and everyone's like, we have to do this. This makes total sense. I've used this product before. It's great. But what happens is that you're missing an opportunity to build credibility and credence into the program. I actually tell clients who have managers who say, don't worry about the financial benefit of this program. Well, in 18 months, someone's going to start going, hey, what does your team do? Okay, and how does your team help the business? Well, if your answer is academically because it's the right thing to do, well, a team that is doing sales or cutting cost is probably going to get higher preference. I mean, that's just the reality of any business. So, what I want to highlight here is by establishing goals with a clear link to profitability is the only way to drive measurable ROI. Okay? When people say there's ROI, but they can't tell you what the profit is, I have no idea how they're calculating it because you've got the cost. Everyone knows the cost. Okay? So you know what the investment is, but if you don't know what the return is, you can't tell me what ROI is. So even though you say your ROI is 400%, what does that really mean? Challenge is that companies don't always have the courage to do this because sometimes, guess what? There isn't an ROI or the ROI is garbage. So don't do it. But document that. Highlight the fact that we looked at this problem and this problem is not worth investing in. So when that problem comes up, you can say, we talked about this, here was the ROI, and we said no, and here's why we said no. Is there a reason to prioritize this? Or maybe we weren't thinking about it broadly enough. But this is what companies need to do because these investments are obviously no-brainers and you have to do these things. But if you're doing them in such a way that doesn't yield business results, you are just spending money, okay? Nothing's happening. And if you do them poorly, they actually can increase cost and hurt productivity within your organization. And maybe you see this in your day-to-day already. So what are some questions we get when it comes to ensuring that these goals are measurable? Okay, what's the best way to do this? It's very simple. Go out there, talk to the business, understand what the cost is, really overinvest in planning and requirements gathering. And you need to validate this with finance because it's very easy for an operator or a client-facing person to say, like, this is going to generate $10 million of revenue. And we run a 20% profit margin, so it's going to be X million dollars. The thing is if you don't work with your finance team, you don't work with your other functions, it's never going to be committed to the plan. And if it's never committed to the plan, it's never going to be real. So if you're just putting numbers on papers, again, you're not getting that R out of the ROI calculation. So you need to make sure it's committed to the plan. Okay, so executive leadership very commonly will be like, well, you have to do this. You have to do this. Let's get rid of these legacy systems. Well, you have to do something innovative. Well, that's great. And I know what it feels like to have a lot of pressure on you from your executive team. At one point I was working for the CEO of the company and it's like, hey, we need to do this. And it was like, yeah, no shit. But the reality is how do you come back to them and say, hey, we can't do this and this is why and here are the risks? Because if you explain it to them in dollars and cents and risks, they'll leave you alone. Because if you say it's going to cost $10 million to do this and it's going to generate $1 million of benefit, and the risk here is something that we can mitigate in another way, they're going to be very happy with that because they're compensated on profitability. Profitability drives the valuation of the company. Their investors care about the valuation of the company. Everything comes back to profitability. So even if you feel that pressure, just recognize that the fundamentals of what we're doing here will help you relieve some of that. And look, sometimes we work with clients that are like, I really, really, really want to do this, and it's something we have to do, but I can't get that financial benefit. Well, firstly, it's okay just to stop and wait until you're ready. And that doesn't mean give up on it. It means maybe this problem exists in other departments. Maybe this problem impacts other customers. How do you build the scope of the problem? Okay? Because that is the area of focus. So just because you can't do it on the first swing, you could do it on the second or third or fourth one. So very much an iterative exercise. Excuse me. All right. So now that we've got a community, and now that we've identified the business impact, we need to empower an internal champion to own this initiative. Okay, this change doesn't happen by itself. So someone needs to drive it. And this doesn't mean hey, I'm gonna send out an email, congratulations, this guy's been promoted to head of data strategy. You know, please welcome him and his accomplishment and or her. And you get like 10 responses from your friends within the company, and that's where the engagement stops. No, that champion needs access, right? And then those other department leads also know what they are responsible for and how they need to support. Okay, so if the champion is being beat up by internal politics, it's a failure of sponsorship. Okay, and if the data strategy lead is just getting ping ponged around, you need to pause again, which is, why are we driving this forward? Because we're not getting the right sponsorship, we're not getting the right use cases, our champion's not empowered to be successful. Because if you don't have a community, and if you don't have clear goals, and the person responsible for being the driving the success of these initiatives isn't successful, or isn't put in a position to be successful, guess what's going to happen? So again, step 3 needs to happen before you even move forward. So what I want to highlight here is that you need to empower this person with the right resources, because generally you need someone with CEO level skills, but you probably can't put a CEO in this role. So you're going to have to hire someone who's ambitious, hungry, been around the business for a while, probably pretty young, you know, relatively young. So how do you set them up for success? Because they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to need to learn, and they're going to need to grow. And you don't want them making these mistakes with their colleagues. You want them making their mistakes with either a trusted advisor or an internal mentor, but someone who makes sure that they're successful. Otherwise, they're going to start making small mistakes and looking down the project 6 months later and be like, oh my God, if I had only known that 6 months earlier, we wouldn't be where we are today. And then that is what we want to help prevent. So who should this individual be? From my experience, technical isn't always better. It should be someone who's ambitious, hungry, respected by their peers, can drive engagement, is persistent, isn't afraid of no. You know, I would almost rather put a salesperson in this role than a technologist, because you need someone who gets, like a salesperson can't always sell something that they don't believe in. Or a good salesperson can't sell what they don't believe in. But you know, that is the kind of person you need just driving this forward. What's a sponsor responsible for? Well, they just need to clear the runway so the champion can get through to the different departmental leads to identify use cases that drive different business impact. And they just need to sign up for the P&L accountability on those use cases. Okay, that's great, but how do I actually empower this individual? Well, in addition to giving them an informal support system behind the scenes with mentors and coaches, I would highly recommend that you set them up for success by saying, what do you need? How does this drive? Ask the right questions. How does this drive business value? How is this going to impact? And if they can't answer those questions, just keep it simple. It doesn't need to become obtuse debates. It's very much a checklist. It's, what's the business benefit? How are we going to get there? Straightforward. Okay. 4. Okay, that's great. Now that we're talking to the business, the champion's empowered, and we have a measurable financial impact, guess what's going to happen? Demand is going to go through the roof, hopefully. And if it doesn't, that's not bad either. But you're probably going to end up with, you know, half a dozen initiatives internally where people are going to want something from you. Because in the past, what happens is people try to manage data as a monolith, like one-off project. It'd be nice if you could just be like, data done. Like, it's not a checklist. It's just something you have to do every day, and you have to maintain it, and you have to drive it forward. And how do you make that as lightweight and as business beneficial as possible? So what happens is that if you don't manage a portfolio of multiple strategic data initiatives, you're going to end up making the same one-time fixed investment for every project. So every project gets, you know, the same consulting cost, gets the same requirements gathering, the same internal cost, it gets the same technology. Maybe and before you know it, and what you'll see at some companies is you'll have a situation where you have 5 or 6 or 7 different parallel architectures all solving similar problems but with different technologies, and you're looking at costs that are n times what they should be at your organization, and that's an opportunity that it's a use case in its own right to cut some of that technology spend. But anyhow, so really what you need to do is by building, that single portfolio of use cases for your data initiatives, you're going to get these synergies. So every company should have one data warehouse. Okay, doesn't always happen. Every company should have one BI tool for specific types of BI use cases, whether it's ad hoc or dashboarding or monitoring or whatever. But there's no reason why you should have multiple tools that accomplish the same things for different people. Because look, all these different initiatives are going to drive substantial business impact, but we need to make sure that they are built around a single data core. Because great, we've got the engagement, we've got the business impact, we've got the community, but if the use cases aren't aligned, it's going to be impossible to drive alignment to a common core. And that's why it's so important to do this. So what are some questions? Why do I need I hope I hit on this, the why do I need a portfolio of use cases? You're going to go crazy with that one. Firstly, is you need to understand how to prioritize. You need to understand how to stack rank opportunities against each other. It's also important to hear other people and listen to their needs. And even if their needs aren't going to be a priority, you'll keep their engagement if you explain to them. It's like, hey, this is what you need. Here's the benefit of this relative to other opportunities. Okay, and because of that, here is where you stack rank, and they'll be like, okay, and you can be like, well, here's what you can do to improve it, and then they'll probably be like, I don't know if I can do that, but ultimately they have a path forward to be able to participate in a constructive way. What's a data community? We talked about that earlier, but what I want to highlight here is that the data community is integral in the use case sponsorship. So when you think about your data community, the champion gets to engage sponsors. Those sponsors each own their use cases. And within each one of those use cases, you have different roles, which I'm going to talk about later. But that is how the data community comes together to support step 4. How do you effectively engage them? You just got to pound the pavement, coffee, lunch, set up meetings in a way that they want to be a part of. Get to know them, get to know their problems, sit side by side with them. Be like, how can I help you? Don't show them the tools that you have access to. Oh my God, don't do that. Be like, hey, look, I've got XYZ solution, or I can do all these great things, and oh my God, I'm so talented. It really focus on what do they need, okay? And then what is a use case? It's still somewhat gray, is that if you have any process within your business that relies on data, and data is an encumbrance to that process, that is a wonderful use case. And what you see is that use cases can be improving productivity, improving client retention, improving employee turnover, reducing redundant software investments. There's a variety of different financial metrics they can do to drive a use case. It's not, hey, if we have these insights, we can maybe do something. No, there should be real costs. And if people need to go from system A to system B through a spreadsheet, you've already got a problem. So, you look for opportunities like that within your business where there's disconnects between systems or there's disconnects between people and systems. And how do you get a use case approved? Well, ultimately, it'd be the champion who would have the authority to say, hey, this is the best case use case. And then they could go to the respective sponsors and say, hey, look, here's the best one. Do we all agree? If not, why? And then always has the ability to go to the CEO or whatever president or whatever P&L owner is sitting on top of that person, because they need to be able to allocate capital efficiently. And really, just use case approval is just all about capital allocation. Where do I get the biggest bang for the buck? Okay, with the lowest risk, obviously. So after you've got your use case portfolio, and now we prioritize the use case. So we found our beachhead use case, and you know what you really need to tackle. Okay, what happens in these situations usually is that companies are going to be like, okay, finance team, I need you to give me requirements. And that's kind of where this conversation stops. Or product team, I need requirements. Well, there's a false assumption baked into this that those teams actually know what they're doing related to data management. They don't, okay? No one really is particularly good at this. unless they're a practitioner. So leaving it to the devices of the different departments to figure out the way that they participate in the project can be pretty dangerous. So what you need to do, and what happens is when you get bad requirements, you get bad solutions. So what you need to do is you need to make the responsibilities clear. Who's responsible for the use case? Who's responsible for the business terms? Who's responsible for mapping the data? Those are all different people. So even if you have one sponsor or many sponsors, you could have dozens of people within your data community as part of that team delivering those requirements for that use case. And it overlaps. So if you think about it bubbling out across different use cases, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So trying to explain data at a higher level is where things get lost, because there is so much detail and intricacy when it comes down to building requirements, because that's what data management is what are the requirements of the business when it comes to data, and making sure that those sustain over time. So what I want to highlight is that when you make those responsibilities clear, okay, and those tasks are defined at a high degree of detail, it doesn't become a project blocker, but an enabler, because people can talk about the project within the context of the data. So for example, if you find yourself in a situation where the business says, I need 1,000 data points to achieve this benefit. Well, what if you went back to the business and said, okay, what if I gave you 20 of these? Would you get 80% of the business benefit? Yeah, probably. Because, oh my gosh, if you need more 20 or 30 data elements to answer a question, you're asking some pretty sophisticated questions, okay? So, or you're not. You're just looking at data dumps and trying to figure it out. But think about the simplicity that will put into execution. So just one very simple conversation. Again, hey, 20 data elements to get 80% of the benefit. This is a no-brainer. Let's shrink the scope, make the execution a little bit easier, time to value becomes greater. And then you can obviously enhance that over time. Okay? What exactly is data management? And I've got a definition here. So citing DAMA International, okay? Data management is the development, execution, and supervision of plans, policies, programs, and practices that deliver, control, protect, and enhance the value of data and information assets through their life cycles. Okay, which leads me to the next point is, what is a data management task or activity? Well, again, according to DAMA, I'm going to read this. A data management activity can be wide-ranging. They include everything from the ability to make consistent decisions about how to get strategic value from data to the technical deployment and performance of databases. Seems pretty broad, right? So if you just gave someone that one statement, it's like, what is data management? Well, everything, okay? So that's the thing that we need to break down, is that perfect is very much the enemy of the good, enemy of good here. So how do you do the minimum required work to get the maximum required or maximum desired benefit for that matter? Who is DAMA International? It's a non-for-profit vendor-based or vendor-independent association of technical and business professionals dedicated to advancing concepts and practices related to managing data and information in support of business strategy. I like this question is, what if I don't have the resources right up front? This is great because, again, we haven't spent $1, only time. We haven't figured out what the gaps are. But what you can do is say, hey, executive leader, for this, for the product community, for this use case, okay, with these stakeholders, I have someone who knows the data really, really well, okay, and I have someone who thinks that there's $1 million benefit here, but no one can provide me with business terms. Okay, well, someone has to within the company, otherwise, how on earth are you making those reports? But you need to make those gaps clear, okay? And if those gaps present risks that are large enough, so in that example, it's probably not that large of a risk, because you could just put someone in that role who's most knowledgeable to do their best effort, okay, and evolve that over time. But if you don't, let's say you don't have the person who knows the data intimately to be able to map it to requirements, well, you need to make an investment there, obviously. But you see how easy that conversation is, because it's very specific and actionable. And anyone who's participating in the project will know what perspective that they need to bring to that conversation to be able to make that resource ask. So it's not this circular conversation of trying to like unwind the wheel with everyone having their own perspective on how data is managed. And, you know, one of my mentors said to me, you know, what makes data hard is that everyone is capable and everyone can have an opinion on it, because no one's really an authority on it. It's a matter of opinion in a lot of ways. Okay, so that's where you need to be careful. Step 6. Okay, we've got these amazing requirements, okay, and we know exactly what we need, and it's going to drive business value, and we've had all these trade-off conversations. Now here's where the rubber hits the road. We need to align these to the solution, because traditionally what happens is that companies, they invest in the technology and make the data fit the technology, and guess what? That doesn't work. People don't use the solution gets, you know, baby out with the bathwater, and then you lose momentum on the initiative. Okay, but by aligning those requirements, you're essentially turning each use case into one query. Okay, one query that can go anywhere, but it's just business logic attached to financial value. So you can literally say to yourself, this is the value of this data for this specific use case. Okay, the benefit here, and I can't stress this enough, is that your profitability improvements are going to be guaranteed. Because if you know your requirements at the data level and you know what you need to make the process better, there's no ambiguity at that point. And if the technology can't solve the problem, select another technology that can. And if no technology can solve the problem, change the use case. Okay? But you don't find yourself in a situation where you're failing because of technology. I can't tell you how many times I see a business person not want to do the work, and the technology person says this is a product issue, and then they go fire the software vendor because the software vendor, their product sucks. But the reality is that they don't have good requirements, they don't have a good use case for the technology, the business is showing no accountability in that situation, the technology is not willing to challenge the business or is just exhausted from doing so, and therefore they cancel the contract. Everyone loses. A lot of time is wasted by all parties, and no one wins, even though everyone was well-intentioned trying to do the right thing. We don't want to do that anymore. If you read some of the stats out there, the percentage of failure on technology-related change is so high, and it's just the bar is so low to fix these issues. Take the opportunity just to do the work up front. If there's one thing I can stress, and it's funny, if you look at some of our case studies, our clients will say that is just knowing what you want before you start, or at least having a very good idea of what you want before you start, is going to take you light years ahead of the competition. Because remember, when people are telling you about data management best practices, they're telling you about the average. And guess what? The average is mediocre. If you want to do something different, keep it simple, focus on the fundamentals, and you'll actually drive change within your business. Okay, what are some of the questions we get here? And I kind of alluded to that earlier, is what's the best way to do this? Again, clear requirements, map to the data itself. And the benefits are you're not going to have failed implementations, okay? And let's say you don't have a data person. So what? Okay, does anyone in your company know where the data resides or what it means? I've worked with companies where the most knowledgeable person about the data has been a vendor. Well, take the opportunity to document what they know and put it somewhere, because then anyone can be a data person if you don't have someone necessarily staffed to that. But you can find workarounds even though if you don't have a data person. So step 7, and this kind of brings it home, is this is when data governance starts. Data governance, like I was saying earlier, is not loading data into a data catalog. Data governance is not hiring a consultant to tell you, here are best practices and here's what you need to do. And then after they leave, the project ends and it just kind of stops. And then maybe you hire that consultant a year later to do the same thing or a different one. Okay? Data governance is just the ongoing steps of 1 through 6. Build the community, okay? Make sure that there's a financial benefit. Empower someone to own it, okay? Build that team and then align those requirements to that solution. And as long as you keep doing that, you're going to see governance, okay? Because governance is not a work activity. governance is doing things well over time in such a way that people know how to participate. And bringing it home to the first point is like, if you don't have a community, what the heck are you governing? Okay, because no one's listening to you anyway. They're going to do what they want. Just speaking candidly, that's the one thing I want to caution data leaders on is like, of course you have to do data governance, but the thing is you're not going to do data governance by just doing data governance. Okay, and what happens is here's the financial hit to the business is if you're not closing the loop on these initiatives. Okay, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to incur, like I was saying earlier, the same costs over and over and over and over again to deliver similar solutions that don't meet business needs. Okay, so much time is going to be wasted. It's going to be a frustrating place to work. This is a huge miss by organizations. So when you think of data governance, you should be thinking about, how do I grow enterprise value with data? Period. Okay? And governance is about ensuring that those investments in data are growing the valuation of your company. Okay? Not making sure that a business term is defined and updated every 3 days or whatever rule you have at your company. And people avoid this work because it's hard. Okay? It is hard, and it is not always the most glamorous work. People are quick to delegate it to the lowest level of the organization, to like have the intern do the data management. But, it's one of these things where having good data management is like having good health. And I keep hitting on this point, which is you can go to a doctor and still be unhealthy. Doctor's no different than a consultant. Or you can take a pill that lowers your cholesterol, but you can still get diabetes if you don't exercise. So, you got to understand that by not changing your behaviors, you're not going to be able to effectively implement data management and data governance. And these are the questions you have to ask yourself when you're moving down these kind of initiatives. It's like, oh my gosh, if I have to do steps 1 through 6 here, am I really ready for something like that? And if not, what can we do? And then what are the expectations on what we can do? And then just making sure that's clear, because I see so many data leaders getting over their head to where they're like, oh, we're going to do something amazing, and then what's delivered is completely disjointed from expectations, and then it hurts their careers, and I just hate watching that. So why shouldn't I just stop my data governance activities? Well, you can, if you want, and it depends if they're delivering business value. Honestly, when we're working with customers that are building up teams just to do documentation, you should stop that as soon as possible. But what you should focus on is, how do you align those efforts to business value? So how do you keep data governance? It goes back to step 1. You got to engage the community. If there's no benefit to working with data, meaning I get more financial return and therefore more budget, and therefore I get promoted, and therefore I look better to my boss, so on and so forth, people aren't going to do the work. So you need to make sure that engagement is there with your community. If you don't have it, then what you're doing is not perceived as valuable. And if what you're doing is not perceived as valuable, and you can't influence this situation, maybe it's time to start looking for another opportunity elsewhere, because maybe your organization isn't ready for these things. So again, doing the right thing isn't always the right thing for your company, and it's probably not going to be the right thing for you. So there's no sense being a martyr, to do the right thing for your company if they're not going to support you. So what's the balance between too much and not enough? And what I see is, if people are avoiding you because they don't want to work with you, that's when you can be a little more heavy-handed, especially if you've got the sponsorship and your community built up. That's when you can start going, hey, Mr. CXO, this joker over here is not participating. I've been very clear in what he needs to participate in, and I know you sponsor this. Please help me push him. That's where you can be heavy-handed with data governance. Okay, and that's when there's not enough. But too much is where people actively are now avoiding you because you're giving them work, like you're giving them too much work to where they do not see the business value. So that's the line you're going to have to toe. And then, how do you source another use case? So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, is that if you don't have it defined and you don't have it within your portfolio already, Okay, what you just need to do is keep talking to the business. Maybe some use cases are in fact 2 or 3 or 4, and those are just ongoing conversations that are going to evolve. And when you go into the room, don't limit the business by solutions. Don't limit the business by the data that exists today. Force them to explain exactly what they want and how it's going to help them. They're bound by reality, just like you are. So, when someone says we need artificial intelligence, be like, for what? Okay, to make better decisions. For what? Okay, to make better decisions for selling products. Okay, and what's that going to do? And who's that going to benefit? I mean, simple, just common sense questions that make things become very real. It's so easy to get lost in the data needs or best practices or the newest trend or whatever, but you're again missing the fundamentals. So here we go. Just so we burn it in your brain. The 7-step process on how to create a fair and transparent playing field for data, okay, that clearly links to business value. Build the community, 1. After you've built the community, make sure that your initiative has measurable financial benefit, okay? Empower someone to own the initiative. Manage a portfolio of those initiatives. Then build a cross-functional team to support those initiatives, and then align those requirements to the desired solution. Build it around that data core, and then govern the initiative over time. And what does this start to look like for your organization? So as you identify the use case, as you identify the ROI, as you establish the plan, as there's a timeline, as you execute, as people adopt, as you're able to measure impact, as you're able to evangelize the success of it. It's a little small, but what you're going to see is the financial impact of your data strategy is going to improve, as is the amount of people engaged, both employees and customers alike, within your data strategy. It's continuous improvement, driving forward continuous improvement with data in such a way that captures increased profitability and in turn growing enterprise value. So here's your options. And I'm being a little crass here, but option 1 is you're going to have to figure it out. Okay, so you can spend the time and research, and you can go to seminars and conferences, and you can read the books, and it's going to be a pain to figure it all out. So, or you could be like, you know what, I don't want to touch this, so I'm the head of data strategy, I'm going to hire a head of data governance. He'll have to figure it out, or she'll have to figure it out. And guess what? They're going to be faced with the same problems you were faced with, and who knows if they're even capable of solving the problem. So by the time you've hired that person, you're probably months, or it's hard to find people like that anyway, so you're probably months out, and you're all betting on their success. Now, or you could bring in a consultant, and consultant's going to be like, you know what, you need to figure it out. Oh, and by the way, 10 weeks later and a couple $100,000 later, thanks for that. Or you can go out and buy software. So buy a data governance solution or a metadata solution or something like that. And guess what? That software is not going to help you. In fact, if you don't figure it out, what you're doing with that software is not going to enable you to solve the problem. Now, you could also hire a systems implementer. Well, guess what? If you can't give that system implementer clear requirements through steps 1 through 5, guess what? They can't do step 6 without you. So you're just going to be paying someone a lot of money to build something that ultimately you're not going to be able to use, that they're incented to make more complicated, because then they can maintain it over time, because that's how they get their recurring revenue. So you'll be in a situation where you're going to be spending lots of money because you're avoiding the work that needs to happen. Now the question is how do you make that work easier? Okay? How do you make it clear and fair for other people to engage with you to drive forward your data strategy? So why you should partner with us is you can create that fair and transparent playing field for your organization, right? That clearly links data to business value in 30 days or less. I've seen customers actually move faster for easily less than 1/10 the cost in a fraction of the effort, right? Because what we can do with you is give you that playbook. We can give you that narrative on how to do this yourself, okay? And then we can give you our solution so you can work on it without us as you move forward with these data initiatives. So 1, short sprint showing you how to do it. Thereafter, we go into maintenance mode where we're supporting you through our product. So you can, training wheels are off and you've got your bicycle and you can keep driving things forward. Okay, again, I want to highlight this is for data strategy leaders who are really looking to change their organization, and you really care about clearly linking data to business value, right? If you don't have the chops for that, we're probably not a good partner for you, right? We don't want, the know-it-all who thinks that this is the right thing to do, and by virtue of that, the results don't matter. Okay, so if you're falling into the common pitfalls of the academic side of data management, we can't help you. But we love working with people. Maybe they aren't the expert on data, but they're just trying to grow as a person. They want to learn something new. They want to try building something different. They're looking for an opportunity to accelerate their career. And maybe they're like me and they're just tired of watching the same problem occur over and over and over again, to the point to where you can anticipate failure before the initiative even starts. And this is very much real. And going back to the case study from earlier from Williams-Lee, is we help them find $500,000 of profitability. And don't get me wrong, that profitability is relative to their size. So if you're a bigger company, it's probably bigger. If you're a smaller company, it's probably smaller. But it all started with those 30 days where we found millions of dollars in lost productivity because a lot of time was going to building reports for customers that customers found to not be so innovative, okay? And that generated a real multiple for their business. In addition to that, when you're investing in data and analytics and technology solutions, they come at higher multiples anyway than core process-based business models. So again, Nick, their CTO, is saying 30 days, no buzzword, to drive a full data transformation. And Nick would even say, we made it look too easy. And it's because you keep it simple. So, and this is a global organization. You've got to keep it simple. And the thing is that your organizations are so complicated and not built around data, it's very hard to keep it simple. So how do we give you a framework to keep it simple? So here's what's going to happen when you work with this is, one, you're going to clearly link the business benefit back to data initiatives. You're going to get clarity, okay? I can't tell you how many of our clients say, oh my God, the amount of time I spent talking about data at the executive level has stopped. We were working with one client that had people spending days on end complaining about data quality, but then we empowered them with some pretty strong rebuttals, which is, here's what we need to do to fix it, or we're going to stop talking about it. And just think about the noise you can stop. And think about how much time you can give back to yourself, okay? Think about how much time you could have during the day. I bet you spend an hour or two a day talking about data. Oh my, sometimes those are just the worst conversations. And then here's the other thing, is that if you build out these core capabilities and solutions, you can have a deeper bench. And when you onboard new people and employees in your organization, they can, as opposed to going to that one person, they can either go to a solution or they can go to a team of people who are informally collaborating on this. So you're going to really drive additional business transformation because you're going to get greater reach to your strategy than you can do as an individual. Okay? And honestly, maybe you'll feel a little bit of relief because this is a really simple problem with complex implications, okay? And if you just don't focus on the fundamentals, it's so much harder than it needs to be. So you're just going to feel so much better because what's seemingly complex is in fact something that can be very much simplified, okay? So let me tell you about what today's offer comes with. Is we're going to give you that data management playbook and process. So before, when you wanted to plan for your strategic data initiative, you're ultimately going to have to figure it out. But we're going to give you an easy 7-step process that we kind of highlighted too, but in more detail, and then an operating model for data governance that will ultimately drive lasting impact with your data initiatives. And it's something that we value at almost $25,000. And in addition to that, we're going to give you coaching. So after those 30 days are done, okay, it's not like go figure it out, After those 30 days, you get the solution, you get the data workbench, and then give us a call when you get stuck, okay? Not just on how do I use the product, but hey, I'm stuck on this problem, which is how do I get this use case, or how do I get this sponsor? If it's directly related to the initiative of driving your data strategy, we're happy to brainstorm on it with you and give you some best practices and where we can get through things. And sometimes with a quick call, we can get you unstuck very quickly. Okay, we value this at $20,000. We're also going to give you a repeatable use case framework. So the ability to capture multiple different use cases. Okay, and this is an area where you'd have to figure out before, probably with complex like templates that finance provided with you. But in these 30 days, we can give you this framework where you get clear and best possible avenues to drive profitability growth with data. And this is something that we value at $5,000. Now, the data community design, critical, same thing. When you wanted to build out that cross-functional team at your data initiative, you'd have to assume that they actually knew what they were doing when you were engaging them on these projects. But here you can explicitly make it clear, even though if they don't report to you, here are their roles, here are their responsibilities, here's what they're accountable for, here's what they're not accountable for, and ultimately here's what's going to drive this forward, okay? And then in addition to that, we're going to give you our cloud data governance solution, the Data Workbench. So before, when you wanted to basically store all your community activity and your business requirements gathering and your metadata in a single solution, you probably have to buy a metadata solution, but you'd probably be in Excel and PowerPoint and email, right? But now you can use this simple cloud data governance solution to bring all those work activities into one. So it's about time that a data strategy leader was given a platform to enable their day-to-day work activities. So you weren't caught between the patchwork quilt of solutions and trying to make sense out of it all. It's just one clear, single repository. Okay, that's something we value at $125,000. Okay, and last but not least, we give you monthly access to our support services and the Data Workbench. So as you're driving your data governance forward, give us a call. Use the product, okay? So before, when you had to staff, dozens of resources to this project or hire external content, you can simply use this lightweight solution to keep inertia on your data initiatives without having to hire additional headcount, You see how easy that is? Ultimately, and that's something we price at $125,000 as well. So for almost $250,000 of value, we can deliver you tremendous benefit to your organization. So before we jump into that, I want to show you a quick demo video of how the product works. Take a look. It's about a 2-minute video, and I'm just going to pause for a second.
Data Workbench is a cloud-based data intelligence platform that enables data leaders to systematically organize, collaborate, and drive tangible business impact through end-user engagement for all of their data-dependent initiatives. Log in to your profile to get started. Instantly, you have access to a comprehensive dashboard with key insights on all of your data management initiatives. Easily search for key business terms. All artifacts are linked together, giving data leaders tremendous visibility into their organizational metadata. Build something that matters by fostering engagement with your data community by understanding individual data consumer needs and wants. Get organizational consensus to drive momentum into your initiatives by aligning your data community to common business needs. Track the progress of business-sponsored use cases to drive tangible business impact through a proven process. The quality of each use case will be scored and benchmarked against one another automatically by a letter grade to help prioritize use cases with the greatest tangible business impact and strong data community engagement. Tired of arguing about what data means? Build a centralized knowledge repository to easily create, standardize, and find key business terms without digging through spreadsheets, siloed systems, or legacy software. You don't need painful data governance meetings when building consensus is as easy as making a comment whenever you'd like. Hi, Natasha Faggery. Take a look at loyalty member. Frustrated by delays in execution? Our data dictionary easily maps business terms to technical terms, ensuring your team will never have to worry about what is being delivered, meaning something different to what is required. At the end of the day, are you getting what you paid for? You can even keep track of the adoption and return on investment of all of your technology and organizational solutions in a single inventory. Embedded Zenodata services include voice of the customer interviews and data capabilities benchmarking. You'll always have clear insights into your organization's data transformation initiatives. Our platform even lets you see your data strategy over time. With Data Workbench, your data transformation begins now. If you're ready to get started, visit zenodata.io to request a demo today.
That's great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that demo. But what I want to talk to you about today is what we're going to offer you. So like I was saying, if you want to get this job done before working with us with, let's say, a generalist consultant, an SI, a tech vendor, this could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the size of your organization. And then that would come with considerable risk, which I highlighted earlier. Or honestly, we can build that for you for probably less than 1% of the cost and empower an internal resource with a framework to keep your data management processes lean and agile so you can invest in what matters, the talent and solutions that solve real business problems. So here's what we're going to get. Here's what you're going to get. So first, you're going to get that playbook and process that's going to drive lasting enterprise value, identification and capture. This is going to allow you to bring clarity and structure to your data initiatives. We value this at $25,000. We're going to help you build the champion with unlimited executive coaching and training from industry veterans. For any high-performing internal resource that you're choosing, to learn the appropriate framework and tools to ensure lasting change. This includes ongoing coaching calls and self-service assessments to bring fresh perspectives on a familiar problem, and empowers key resources to be able to own and drive the desired transformation. We value this at $20,000. Again, we're going to give you that repeatable framework to stack rank and prioritize a portfolio of use cases to ensure that what's desired is going to drive tangible financial value. We value this value this at $20,000. A simple yet powerful data governance solution. Again, this will allow you to standardize key metrics and map them to an authoritative source of information while ensuring that the business value is linked to data without breaking the bank on more expensive tools. This is ultimately valued at $50,000. And ongoing inertia beyond with this monthly access to our support services and the data workbench, we value this at $125,000. So instead of paying $250,000 just to put this piece together, without even hiring the consultants, without even buying the technology, we can offer this to you easily for 1/10 of the cost. And if this is something you're interested in, you should definitely reach out to us. Now, here's the challenge I have, is that this is a pretty compelling offer. And we're looking for some early customers who are willing to bet on a startup who want to be a part of our early stage development. So I can only give 5 of these away. Okay? We've already given away 5. I've only got 5 left. Okay? Now, here's what I'm going to do for you. For an early customer, I'm ultimately going to give you a management presentation for free. So in addition to the $25,000 playbook and process, we'll just include that in the price. And ultimately, you're going to walk away with the solution and a presentation just for the cost of the solution itself. So we'll save you all the money related to the management presentation. So that's a $25,000 value. Okay. Also, within those 30 days, I'm so confident that we can give you a fair and transparent playing field to managing data. I will give you a money-back guarantee. So within 30 days, if we haven't delivered that management presentation and solution that gives you a fair and transparent playing field for managing data as a strategic asset at your company, then as far as I'm concerned, we have failed, and I'm more than happy to refund you your money. Okay, so for literally no risk, you can work with us for 30 days, get free insight into how we do it at a detailed level. Okay, you're also going to get access to the solution. And for being an early customer, as a thank you, we see this as a two-way partnership in how we develop that product. So we're looking for data leaders who are really forward-thinking, who are looking to drive forward some big change within their organization. So let me jump into it. Okay, so here's today's offer. $25,000 for that playbook. Unlimited champion coaching for $20,000. For the $20,000 use case framework to find real opportunities with data, the $10,000 framework for the community design and best practices, the $50,000 for the cloud data governance solution, and $125,000 for that monthly access to the Xenodata support services and the data workbench, for a total value of $250,000. Today's price, I'm fairly confident we can offer this to you at 1/10 the cost of what we think it would take for you to just figure it out yourself, in addition to avoiding all those other costs, or at least attacking them more intelligently. And I'm so confident in that. We're looking for those 5 early customers. Okay, the management presentations included. Okay, and we're going to give you that 30-day guarantee. But like I said, we only have 5 more of these left. Okay, this is not going to stay around long. The first 5 sold very quickly. So we're real excited to bring you on board here. Last but not least, okay, what are some of the common questions that we have? Okay, you don't have case studies in my industry. How do I know this will work? It comes up. Look, data management is pretty much the same at any company. The data may be different, but the processes and methodologies are the same. Okay, the knowledge about your business and industry is known to your internal employees. We don't bring that to the table. We just help you apply it better. Okay, so we haven't really run into any issues there. We do have some domain experience, so maybe we know some things that are super specific, but generally what I found is any industry operates very similarly when it comes to data management. Is my company the right size to tackle a project like this? We found that companies under $100 million in revenue don't really have data as a problem so much. And even companies that are even larger than that with small employee counts don't necessarily have these issues. The data starts becoming a hairier issue the bigger the company gets. And we also find that the more people, the more complicated the issue is. Where smaller companies tend to be a little bit more nimble on this. You already have someone in place. How does Xenodata fit in our solution? Look, like I was saying, is we're there to coach and enable their success. If that person sees value in what we're doing, we're all about their success. We're not trying to replace them or shortchange them. How much time will it take? That's pretty fair. So like I said, 30 days to put in place the fair and transparent framework to attaching business value to data. Some clients see themselves in putting these processes in place over probably 60 to 90 days, and then we start seeing the financial transformation happen between 120 days and 12 months. So it depends on your organization, but the transformation can take months, but the development of the process can take weeks. What do you do? We are a managed service provider for data governance work activities. So we come in with some management consulting expertise in the first 30 days and then enable you with a product and solution to do it yourself. We think of the first 30 days as training wheels on a bicycle. Then we give you the bicycle. And if you have any questions or want to make any enhancements to the bicycle, you give us a call. Why should you trust me and us? Look, one, we've done this before. It's not like we've identified this problem in the market and are trying to exploit it. It's literally, we felt the pain. We've lived this life. We've done it for years. We've helped dozens of clients achieve these transformations. We're passionate about what we do. We're proven. We have strong references. I'm very proud of what we've built here. So you're getting a lot of authenticity with this group, and I'm very, very confident in what we bring to the table. And how much energy is this going to take? Look, it's going to take your internal resources some time, and it depends how far you want to go into this. So you may find after 30 days that your organization does not have the bandwidth to tackle these issues relative to the use cases identified, at which point you should stop, and we can help you get to that conversation. Or what we find is as we go further into the process, that the organization is unable to capture or define certain business terms. And those are areas where we just know when to stop or make investments. So really, how much energy you want to put into it is going to directly tie to the results. But like I said, if the use case doesn't merit the investment of internal time, then it's not worth pursuing. Sometimes we work with clients that are like, hey, I know what I want to do. Let's just jump into execution. We'd love for you just to be our execution partner. That's fine, but give us the chance to be able to understand your current state methodologies and if we're on the same page and where we can work together. Otherwise, I don't know if we're a good fit for companies that are just looking for delivery alone without our product and advisory services. So anyway, thank you very much for your time today. This was a pleasure presenting to you, and wish you the best of luck. And like I was saying earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at taylor@xenodata.io, or feel free to fill out one of the forms on our website or hit us up on LinkedIn or social media. Anyhow, thanks again for your time. I wish you the best of luck, and stay well.